Hi everyone, my name is Nitzan and this session is about designing a data structure that will address your business needs. Today we are going to talk about why do we need to plan a data structure upfront, but most importantly, how are we going to do that? I'm going to present 3 stages for designing a data structures and in the end to present some tips on how you can test yourselves and make sure that the data structures are correct. Just before we start, let me give a brief introduction of myself. So my name is Nitzan, I'm a business intelligence engineer and I work for Amazon. I'm currently based in the UK. I have slightly more than 6 years of experience. I own a BSc from Ben-Gurion University and I live with my spouse, my son Carmel and my dog Malka. So why do we need to design a data structure upfront? Each data product goes through these following stages. The first one is the design, which we are going to cover today. The second one is the ETL, the extract, transform and load, meaning taking raw data, taking it from a data pipeline until we get to aggregated tables. These aggregated tables are the tables that we need in order to show the information that fits the business requirements. After taking these aggregated data tables, we create a front end. That can be either a report, a tool, or just the product itself that shows the users the data that it needs. So the problem is that if the design is incorrect, everything will be incorrect and eventually the end product won't show the right data and what fits the requirement that we've set up front. Unfortunately, I'm talking from experience. I've learned it the hard way when in the previous company that I worked for, I designed a data structure that was missing a fundamental dimension and as a result, I needed to start everything from the beginning. As I mentioned earlier, in order to make sure that won't happen to you, in the end I will present some ideas on how to check your tables. So what are the steps for designing a data structure? The first thing that we need to do is identify what is the business question. Let's assume that we are launching a new product and we want to measure the user engagement in this product. In details, we want to make sure that we understand what are the daily new users, the daily active users, the monthly active users, the conversion rate, and the average engagement time. Sometimes these requirements won't be so clear as you see now. They may come across a bit vague, and it's important to make sure that we have really clear requirements before we continue. Besides the requirements themselves, it's really important to understand the different definitions. For example, what is an active user? Is it a user who has an account? Is it a user who did an action? A conversion rate, for example. Conversion rate can be a user who finished the onboarding, a user who clicked, a user who did a purchase, and so on. The different definition may vary from company to company, from product to product, and even different people in the same company who works in the same product may have different perspective. It's really important to make sure that we have clear requirements and clear definitions up front with the people that we work with. After we've identified the business question, the next stage will be to understand what are the dimensions, facts, and attributes. Let's start with facts. Facts are the measurements, basically the metrics. What are we really testing? In this case, we test how many users, meaning counting the users. We are also looking for the conversion rate, meaning what is the total views versus the total conversion. The third thing that we are looking for is the average engagement time, meaning the total engagement time versus the number of engagement. After we've identified the facts, we will look for the different dimensions. Dimensions are the way that the data is sliced. In our case, we are looking for daily data. That means that date needs to be a dimension because we need to understand what happens in each single day. If we want to measure the engagement by other factors, for example by country, we'll add the country as a dimension. We can add different dimensions depending on the business needs. For example, if we want to understand if the engagement is varied by different operating systems, we'll add the OS as a third dimension. We can also add dimensions like gender if we want to understand if there is a difference between the conversions, the engagement, etc. of men and women. Besides dimension, we'll need to identify our attributes. Attributes are additional information which does not affect the level of granularity. In other words, these are columns that are higher in the hierarchy. So if we know what is the country, we also know what is the region. If we know what is the OS, we also know if the user has logged in from a mobile or from a desktop. And if we know the date, we clearly know what is the month, the quarter, the year, etc. After we've identified these three components, dimensions, facts, and attributes, we'll move on to the third stage, which is planning the tables themselves. In order to plan the tables, we'll use a method that is called star schema. In a star schema, the tables are linked together in the shape of a star. In the middle, we have the fact table that contains all of our dimensions and the facts, and this table is linked to dimensions table that will contain additional information of every dimension. For example, not just the ID, but also the name, and it will contain the different attributes that are relevant for the dimensions. Let's look at how it looks in our case. So in our case, the fact table is an engagement table that will contain these four dimensions: date, country, OS, and gender. These dimensions will function as the keys of the table. That means that there will be no more than a single combination of the date, a country, an OS, and a gender. This is in order to maintain the level of granularity that we've predefined. Besides these dimensions, we also hold the fact in this fact table. So based on the business question and the dimensions and facts that we've identified, we also have active users, new users. In order to measure the conversion rate, we will save the number of views and number of conversions. And in order to measure the engagement type in average, we'll save the total engagement type and the number of engagements. It's very important not to measure the ratio, meaning the percentages, and saving the total and the number in order to be able to aggregate in different levels of granularity. This engagement table is linked to different dimension tables. For example, the first one, dimension country, we have the country code, and in this table we also have the country name, and we have the attribute region, because if we know the country, we know the region. We have an OS table that holds the OS ID and the OS name, and based on these two, we can define the attributes device type. We also have a date table that holds the date, and since we know the date, we know the month, the quarter, and the year. So it looks like we have finished, and we have a schema, which is great. Now, how do we make sure that we got it right? The best way to do that is look back at the business questions and try to answer them by using the tables that we've created. Let's take an example. What was the conversion rate in January 2021 for females who logged in from mobile devices from Israel? Let's query the schema that we've created and see if it answers the business question. We'll select the number of conversion divided by number of views and get the conversion rate. This is the facts that we've created. We'll use the fact table engagement joined by two dimension table, the OS table and the date table. And from this table, we will select the relevant dimensions. We'll select the month, the year, the gender, the device type, and the country. So according to this query, looks like we got it right, and we can answer the business question by using the tables that we've created. If we'll continue this exercise and do the same thing for all of the business questions by using different combinations of dimensions and attributes, we'll be able to make sure that we got it right and we have a schema that works and basically addresses the business question. So to summarize, we talked today about why we need to plan a data structure upfront. This is in order to make sure that eventually the end product answers the business question after the ETL phase and the front-end phase. How do we do that? First of all is identifying the business questions and make sure that we understand all of the definition and everything is super clear. The second thing is what are the dimensions, facts, and attributes. And the third thing is planning the tables by using a star schema. In the end, after we finalized a table and a design, we'll verify the design by querying the tables that we've created and make sure that they answer the business questions. Thank you very much for listening in. This is my LinkedIn profile and you are happy to connect. Thanks again.